Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to The Bunker. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail has been left by a caller named Alex. Let's hear what Alex has to say.
Hi, Lloyd. I'll call myself actually Alex for the time being, just to remain anonymous, in case any PIMI insiders, in case you decide to broadcast this or in case you decide to put this up on YouTube. I myself, grown up and raised or born and raised in this organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. I've always had small little doubts here and there growing up. I'm a fourth generation. And so, the further generation goes, the more devout your family is. So with me, I was just recently baptized at the 2019 Love Never Fails International Convention. And I was very PIMI myself, with still those lingering doubts coming through. But that day of my baptism, it just woke me up, or started to wake me up. I was just something didn't feel right, as soon as I got baptized. And from there, the rabbit hole I went down. And so I'm now PIMO. I still live with my family. And I always like to look up, doctrines and stuff, and always just researching back and forth. I just don't know how to get out of the mindset of, even though I've proven to myself that, of course, this watchtower does not teach the whole truth. Of course, they teach some certain truths, like God created the earth, and, there's some valuable stuff we can take, but, I just don't know how much percent, but that is infallible, or that the doctrines that are being teachings, like overlapping generation, or only JWs will survive the end. Definitely no biblical doctrine about that. No biblical doctrine to join an organization. And even though I found myself with this doctrine, that I've been able to prove false for it, how can I get my mind? This is the question. How can I get my mind off that thinking that what if this is still the truth, or what if it's some part of the truth, or I just need help. What do you recommend? And how I can just get my mind, or switch my mind completely in a way, turn towards myself. I'm still a Christianity believer, or some days I'm agnostic. Just depends on the mood I'm feeling, or it's, this religion definitely has caused me depression, very, very harsh depression last year. And even, thoughts I'd never want to ever have again, imagine, or having someone else to, or imagining someone else to have those thoughts just brings me heartbreak. And I've become very sensitive to things now, just the way that it's turned my life into being. And so I just need help. How can I get my mind off that the Watchtower organization is completely not the truth, that it is completely infallible? I don't know, just part of my mind sometimes is like, well, what if it is the truth? What if even after all this, what if it is the truth? And, the whole new light doctrine that just completely would make God to seem like a liar. He presented false truths on purpose, I guess, to test us, or that ultimately would make God a liar in the past with this whole new light thing. So I just need your help. I know you definitely do a lot more research than me, and sometimes I'm scared to find out the real truth, or I don't know, that's just what this organization has made me to be, is just always on the edge, very high anxiety. My depression is definitely under control now, but I know it won't be completely resolved until I move out, which is soon. And yeah, so I know this is a long voicemail, but just anything would help. If you can please, please reach out to me, or thank you so much, though.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. I'm sure many will relate to your message. I find it fascinating that I'm getting this sort of message from someone baptized so recently. I mean, it feels like yesterday when I was doing the rebuttals to the 2019 Love Never Fails convention, and here I am taking voicemails, or a voicemail from someone who was baptized during that convention and who has since started waking up. So yeah, don't feel as though you're alone would be my first reaction. There will be many listening to this who are in very similar situation to yourself. So from that perspective, hang in there. Realize that there are many who are on your side and who can extend solidarity. I guess in terms of advice, and it is only advice, I'm no kind of counselor or therapist or anything, but I do have some thoughts on what you ought to consider. And it's really three things. The first thing is therapy. You've made it very clear on multiple points during your voicemail that you are struggling with depression and anxiety. At one point, you suggest that you have it under control, but you don't indicate how you have it under control. If you are being driven to dark thoughts, if you're struggling with depression, if you're struggling with anxiety, and you describe what could be called acute anxiety, these are things that you need a professional to help you with. And if you are living with Jehovah's Witness family members, probably that's going to make it more difficult to pursue therapy because of the cultural resistance to counselors and therapists and psychologists. It's not obviously verboten or forbidden for Jehovah's Witnesses to pursue professional help, but culturally there is some resistance to it. So yeah, that sounds like a very potentially dangerous situation to be in, and you really need to get professional help to help you manage these feelings so that they don't overwhelm you. And your situation brings me to my second piece of advice, which is that you really ought to consider moving out of your current living arrangements. If you're living with family members who are believing Jehovah's Witnesses and who are expecting you to follow in their footsteps, that's not a situation that you can just fix. That's not a situation that's going to resolve itself anytime soon. The only way it's going to resolve itself is if the situation no longer exists, namely, you move out. And it sounds from the message as though you're old enough to move out. I don't know what position you're in financially. I don't know what kind of access you have to, accommodation. I don't know what your work situation is. But if you're nowhere near being in a position to move out, I would, in your shoes, be working towards that goal, because the therapy, any kind of counseling or therapy that you get can only get you so far when on a day-to-day basis, you're in a situation where you're under pressure and you're being expected to conform to a set of beliefs that you perhaps no longer believe. And I say perhaps because it sounds like you are conflicted. It sounds like you honestly don't know, quite frankly. I mean, you call yourself PIMO, physically and mentally out. But if there's this much ambiguity as to whether it really is the truth or not, I would suggest you're not quite there yet. You're not quite at the MO part yet. You're not quite mentally out yet. And that brings me to my third piece of advice, which is the 3 R's: research, research, research. You seem to be wanting me to point you in the direction of some amazing piece of information that's just going to, well, how did you put it? How can I get my mind off of this indecision or this conflict? Well, there's no single piece of information that's going to do it for you, because we're all different. And a piece of information that I find compelling, you might not necessarily find compelling. Vice versa, you could find a particular issue really huge in your deconversion, whereas I might not think that's a huge deal. We're all different. We're all going to respond differently to different issues. And the only way to resolve this, the only way to get your mind off or resolve the conflict, is for you to commit to a period of research. And all of the resources are there, you know. You have plenty of YouTube channels, websites, publications, older publications. You know, whenever I make my videos, if I'm quoting from an older publication, I'll either show the Watchtower Online Library reference, or if it predates Watchtower Online Library, I'll show the page from one of the older books. No website or YouTube channel worth watching or reading or listening to is just going to expect you to take what it's saying on face value. So you should always make sure that what you're being told is true, that it can be verified, cross-check the references, and yeah, just do research. I can't do your research for you. You need to do that. And frankly, whereas study can be a real chore when you're a Jehovah's Witness, and it can be quite intimidating to have to, oh, now I've got to do personal study, time to get out the insight books, you know. It's not something that you necessarily relish, but when you are waking up, study becomes actually quite a thrilling thing, because you are uncovering the truth. It's like you're an archaeologist on a dig and you're discovering for the first time these rare gems that change your entire perception of reality. That's what research is when you are in the process of exiting a cult. It's exciting. It's not something you need to be told to do. So again, I think maybe some introspection on your part. What's stopping you from doing the research, you know? Or are you doing research and you're just kind of in the process still? You just haven't had that eureka moment. Well, that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be like this instantaneous, like, epiphany. Oh, of course, now I realize it's 100% not true, because you ask what percentage. When will you get a percentage on this? I think be patient, quite frankly. There might be a eureka moment, but usually it's more gradual than that. Usually you start the process of research thinking, okay, this has to be true. It can't not be true, and I'm going to prove to myself that it's true because these apostates are lying. And when I look at what they have to say, this is going to be immediately obvious and my beliefs will be vindicated. You go from feeling like that and or feeling like lightning is going to strike you because you've gone on JW Facts, to feeling, frankly, relief mixed with anger. Relief that you're finally free. Relief that you finally know the real truth. And anger that you've been lied to. And I sense that you haven't reached that stage yet. And again, that's fine. Don't beat yourself up over this, or don't expect too much, because, you know, this is a process you need to go through. One excellent resource, which I think you ought to check out if you haven't done so already, is Crisis of Conscience. That would definitely be high up on my list of things to consult. Raymond Franz was a governing body member for the best part of a decade. He saw the way the organization works from the very top. He saw how man-made the whole thing is. And he wrote about his experience in a very compelling, very believable way, and also from the perspective of a believer, because you mentioned that you still consider yourself a Christian. Well, let me introduce you to Raymond Franz, who was all about that. He was all about, you know, maintaining a Christian faith, just without the need to be associated with an organization, or without having an organization define what one's Christian faith is. So if you haven't checked out Crisis of Conscience, definitely do that. If it would be awkward for you to order it to your family home, which it probably would be, maybe see if there's a copy at your local library. And if there isn't a copy already, order one and wait for it to arrive and then read it at the library. There's all sorts of ways that you can do this. You just need to have the will. And I think you do have the will. I think it's just probably early on in your journey. And yeah, stick at it, basically. And again, remember that you're not alone. There are many going through this exact situation right at this moment who are thinking, yeah, this describes me, you know? And we're with you. We're here for you. But thank you so much for sharing your message, and I hope my advice has been helpful to you. If you would like to leave a voicemail, the thing to do is visit speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you don't want your message to be broadcast on my YouTube channel. But that's all I have for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the Lloyd Evans channel for more such videos. And as always, thank you for watching.